I might want to ask you first if you have seen a naked protest before, because we might get to see one soon enough, especially as we have it on the print today. Welcome to this segment of newspaper headlines and analysis, where we check into the stories that are making the rounds across the nation, Nigeria. We check the high point and the low point of every story, and we have a conversation on them if time permits. Of course, we'll check into the Daily Times newspaper this morning, and that particular caption on the front page is ringing so loud in my head. You can see pensioners plan naked protest, give federal government November 24 deadline. A big caption. Plan naked protest by pensioners. I mean, not a good one. We understand why they are doing this, but it's also not a good one to wait for. So the federal government better hurry up to answer to this. Now, that's on page 8 of the Daily Times newspaper. Still tracking all the stories. Insecurity. If you can't deploy bullets, resign. Adebayo tells Tinubu. If you can't deploy bullets, resign. That's what Adebayo is telling Tinubu on Daily Times newspaper this morning. Tinubu's administration acquired $801 million worth of military assets from United States in 18 months. And that's coming from a report, IMPI report, right there. Also a story to check out this morning. Wike military clash over alleged illegal land in Abuja. Also something to check out on the Daily Times newspaper this morning. We'll still get into that conversation. Soludo's defection to APC is imminent. Orji Kalu has revealed that Soludo's defection to APC is soon to come. Perhaps yes, perhaps no. But time, they say, we tell. Now, CSO's 115% fuel tariff will worsen hardship, trigger price surge. Also something to check out this one. And now, also in Rivers State, the last slide on that particular story is Rivers local government polls. Legacy group candidate to appeal court ruling. Appeal yet again. Now, moving on from the Daily Times newspaper to see what other stories are saying on the Nation newspaper. For one, I love listening to what the Nation is saying to the nation. I mean, the Nation newspaper to the nation, Nigeria. And of course, right on the Nation newspaper this morning, quietly written, boldly written on the front page is convention. Another courts others throw PDP into disarray. That's the big story. Another court order throws PDP into disarray on the Nation newspaper. And this is talking about the PDP convention that's scheduled to hold 15th, 16th November in Ibadan, your state capital. And of course, we're still seeing a lot of reactions from this. And even just yesterday, also, there was a court sitting that ruled that that convention should not hold, also demanding that INEC should not go there to witness, to observe, or to do anything with that convention, because there's a particular ruling from Abuja. Justice Motosho once said that, and then Justice Akintola in Oyo State, brought out another ex parte order, and now we see this like the next one we are seeing now. Just Peter Lifu also in Abuja made that particular call, that prayer, of course, in the courthouse yesterday. That is also something to check out as well. We'll get into all of this. Judgment tomorrow in Lamido's Abuja case. Ibadan court to hear another suit today. That's exactly what people are doing. Well, what we're doing now is keeping our fingers as crossed as possible, because there seems to be unfolding and unfolding and unfolding of events right on that convention in Ibadan, especially about the PDP. Now, moving on to other stories still on the Nation newspaper, you see Jarigbe's defection takes APC to 76 senators. Anyway, some have also said there's a chance for a one-party state, but others have believed there's no possibility. But what do we stand to know? Time, they say, we tell. As we focus on this, customs intercept 29.4 billion cocaine at Lagos port. 29.4 billion naira worth of cocaine in Lagos port. Not a good one, but a good one that they caught them. Not a good one that we have this much. Anyway, NUPRC to begin 2025 licensing round 1 by December 1. That's also something to to check out this one. APC to Adeleke, call down on partying, focus on governance. I think this is one of the few persons speaking to the issue of the dancing governor, like some have alluded or called, the governor of Osun State, Adeleke, that he should cut down on partying and focus on governance. Anyway, that is something to check out this morning, right on the print this morning. Of course, Blueprint newspaper is where I land down. And on Blueprint newspaper, as PDP convention gets fresh court order, 3 conflicting judgments in 2 weeks may attract NJC's wrath. That is also something about the PDP, People's Democratic Party convention, that's been scheduled and that has been in the on the table of discourse. It's been up and down. We've seen yes, have it, no, don't have it, and all of that. But let's see if we would have it eventually. Erring judges risk sanction. Situation dangerous. Lawyers abusing judicial process should face LPDC. And that's coming from a senior advocate of Nigeria and the association of them. Now, Senate rejects NNPCL's explanation on unaccounted 210 trillion naira. There has to be emphasis on that amount because it's quite a number if you consider that to be a thing. Senate rejects NNPCL's explanation on unaccounted 210 trillion naira. That's the Nigerian money. Anyway, but moving on from that story, still talking sports on the Blueprint newspaper. The Blueprint has the story on sports playoffs. Super Eagles boycott training over unpaid allowances. And some have said the Super Eagles are still owed since 2019. Such a gory case. It's an indictment. But what we say is whoever has been found culpable in this should actually go for it. Now, moving on, Tinubu, Shetima back Nakon on affordable, successful 2026 Hajj. And that is also the story. We brought it out yesterday. If you follow the news, you can still check up on our Facebook and YouTube platform to see the stories right there about NACOM, how the federal government has intervened to help people who intend to travel for Hajj. Federal government has subsidized in their way. And of course, that's also something to check out on the Blueprint newspaper this morning. Now, moving on from that story, no governor, local government chair can complain of funds on that Tinubu. You want to know who said that? And that's the governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu, came out to say that there's not a single governor that can complain of insufficient funds, that can complain of not having enough allocation from the federal government. Because we also understand this as something that happened when the moment the removal of fuel subsidy came on board. So many things happened. In fact, some states received more than 50% of what they used to get, and now they have money. So that's what somebody is saying, that no, you cannot complain that you don't have money, because we know how much is being disbursed to every state now as allocation to every state because of the fuel subsidy removal and some other monies that are being sent to them by the federal government allocation. That's exactly the story. But what then is the case? If you say you have problems with money and over time the federal government increases the allocation to your state, why would you still complain of the same when you should do what you should do? Or where's the money going? Anyway, that's for another conversation. Now, moving on from that story, NDLEA launches manhunt with United States, DEA, and UK. That's also a collaboration right there. It's something we are seeing and we've been seeing, and we should keep seeing, because collaboration can help, check out some of these issues in the country, Nigeria. Moving on from that as well, now to Daily Independent newspaper this morning. Nigerians' health at risk as toxic chemicals permeate food supply. That's the big, bold caption on the Daily Independent newspaper this morning. I want to check out this morning. It's quite a big one. Nigeria's health at risk as toxic chemicals permeate food supply. There's also that conversation of GMOs, genetically modified organisms, that others have said that a group of people or a group of leaders are trying to bring into the country, and then everybody must be aware. All of the conversation is still on. And while we're having that, we're still having another conversation on Nigeria's health being at risk. And that's something to check out for. But meanwhile, the PDP story is being captioned this way on Daily Independent newspaper. It says, again, court halts PDP National Convention. Just as you can see on your very screen. Judgment on substantive suits is today, I guess. As we also have that also breaking on Daily Independent newspaper. Stakeholders fought security policies, one of rising human rights abuses. Stakeholders fought security policies, one of rising human rights abuses. That is also something on the Daily Independent newspaper this morning. Of course, we just took that particular story on the left corner. If you see, tensions deepens in reps after all this session. That's on page 7 of Daily Independent newspaper. And anyone doubting genocide in Nigeria should go live in Plateau, Benue. That's coming from Bolaji Akinyemi. We're still on this issue, and then we hope to get to the end of it, or to get the better of the story someday, somehow. Now, Sanwo-Olu at Arewa House says insecurity will be defeated. That is also something. I hope this is a prayer, or if it's not a prayer, it's a wish that is backed up by the willpower. But anyway, time will tell. All set for editors' conference in Abuja. Tinubu governors, ministers, media leaders to attend opening ceremony, and all of that. You might want to try couple as it unfolds much further. Panic selling across rocks Nigerian equities as CGT fears trigger 5% tumble. Also something to check out this morning on the business side of things in the country, Nigeria, talking economics. Now, Senate confirms Agbaje as new PENCOM chairman. Also another confirmation coming from the Senate House. Also this morning, something to talk about, to harp on a bit. Now, moving on from that particular paper to see the Guardian newspaper, if the Guardian will guide us into some stories. And you want to know what's on the Guardian newspaper this morning, I think is of interest to you, and it's still talking politics. Ambition, legal battle stall PDP convention, threatening 2027 prospect. That is a write-up on the Guardian newspaper. Page 26 is where to catch up on that story for more details. It's about the PDP saga. If you have a chance to get to see the Guardian newspaper, it has the picture of all the leaders, should we say embattled leaders. You see Nyesom Wike, you see the governor for your state, Engineer Seyi Makinde, and you see Damagun, you see Fintiri, you see quite a number of persons also. Yes, as you have it right now on your screen, you see their faces. Ambition, legal battle stall PDP convention, threatening 2027 prospect. Meanwhile, Senate rebukes NNPC, rejects explanation on unaccounted 210 trillion naira, quite a number to consider this morning. Now, Nigeria eyes 2.8 mbpd oil output as NUPRC begins licensing round. Also something to check out. Federal government will suspend planned CGT over market concerns. That's exactly on the business side of things. If you are interested in that business story, check it out this morning. Wicked military officers feud over disputed FCT property. That story is still breaking and making the rounds. Now, on genocide, there's something to check out. Nigerians urge Tinubu to go harder on terrorists and end bloodshed. That's what Nigerians are clamoring for today in the papers. As you can see, NAFDAC outlaws production of sale of sachet alcoholic beverages. You want to know? I mean, a lot of people have emotions when you call this kind of stories. I remember one time I had a conversation with someone and we're discussing how the NAFDAC body is saying that they want to ban the use of sachet. In fact, what they call it in the local parlance is kwelebe. If you know what I mean, it's kwelebe. So, you know, some would have other names for it. There are a lot of names coming to my head right now, but for one of time I cannot call them. Now, NAFDAC is saying no to that every person that is found, you know, culpable or selling or buying or transacting in that would be, you know, called to book. Now, there's a ban, an outright ban on sachet. You know, that's a alcoholic beverage sachet that we see around. So, you know, sometimes even when I traveled to a particular place, I think it was another region of this country, and I discovered that it wasn't just peculiar to the Southwest. I saw some other places too. In fact, they had different names. You see a lot of names that we cannot even call out. So sometimes I wonder, because if you see some of the inscriptions on those sachets, you see pictures that are not supposed to be in the public domain. You still see the pictures. In fact, they're trying to show you that this is for energy. This is just to get energy while you are doing whatever you're doing. But it's not even proper in a sense too. Some of them don't have regulations as to the content of the alcohol that should be inside. Some of them have been, they've mixed a lot of things, just like some would say a science student kind of mixture, mixing different things just to have a sachet. So that's what NAFDAC is calling to say, okay, hey, there should be a stop to this thing, and that's what they are saying. But the question has been, can it really be stopped? Because others, I've spoken to somebody before that said that is his go-to option anytime he's feeling bad or depressed. So that's like his help. He always has 2 or 3 in his pockets, and I say, you know what, NAFDAC is coming for you, or NDLE is coming for you. But now that's the big story. NAFDAC outlaws production and sale of sachet alcoholic beverages. That's what we have also on the Guardian newspaper this morning. What should we have a bit on the wiki and the military issue? We are still seeing it unfold. So many Nigerians have come out to say this should not happen, especially at this time and age when you have to have altercations and you could still not control your emotions. We understand that human beings are emotional. We should express emotions sometimes, most times, if we want to. But I think, like I mentioned earlier, one thing is certain: your feelings, your emotions are welcome, but your behaviors are not welcome. In fact, let's put it better. All feelings, all emotions are welcome, but not all behaviors are welcome. So even if you claim to be angry, if you see a gun or someone holding a gun, can you face the person and say, shoot me? If you see, just say you are very angry now, and then you go to the zoo and say you want to enter into the lion's den. I mean, what you see, that's why we have to call to attention that whatever you do, even when you claim to be angry, you should do that within the confines of morality, the confines of logicality, as it were. Don't just do things haphazardly and think you would go scot-free for every action, because if we excuse the feelings, we will not excuse the behavior. That's why we have courts, that's why we have prisons, that's why we have police officers, for any wrongdoing. That's exactly the story. And I'll take the last print this morning. That's Daily Sun newspaper. Daily Sun newspaper has some stories that is of interest to you, I'm sure. And of course, it's of interest to me as well. And this is coming from the Army Chief. Military will defend Nigeria's sovereignty. That's coming from the Army Chief. Reps raised the alarm over existence of 1,894 illegal borders. I mean, how do you have such borders? How porous can a nation be, or how more porous can we be if we have 1,894 illegal borders? Anyway, this calls for attention. Now, Workers' Union condemns abduction of 6 Defense Ministry directors on Abuja to Lokoja Highway. So while the military is saying that we will defend, sovereignty, Nigeria's sovereignty, there seems to be a kidnap case of military or workers' union on Abuja to Lokoja Highway. Quite unfortunate, something you might say. Under Tinubu, governors can't lament lack of funds. Yeah, we said that already. And of course, maybe just to harp a bit on terrorism, Kanu asks courts to stop November 20 judgment. That is also on Daily Sun newspaper. The down part of that print you see on terrorism charge. Kanu asks courts to stop November 20 judgment. That story is of interest on Daily Sun newspaper. Now, federal government leased 1 trillion naira MOFI real estate fund on NGX. That is also something to check out this morning. The way Daily Sun takes the story of Nyesom Wike and the naval officer is that Traman, as naval officer, stops Wike FCT officials from accessing Abuja land. Minister accuses ex-CNS of land grabbing and intimidation. That's what the governor said, that nobody can intimidate me. And that was exactly the case right there. That is it a case of intimidation, or is something that should have been settled without throwing emotions or spiking emotions? But that's exactly the story. But just to have a bit on the military defending Nigeria's sovereignty, a group of persons have also said to this that why was it that it was when Donald Trump made a comment about genocide that the security seemed to be beefed up in the country? Because we've seen a lot of times where there's kidnap here, there's banditry there, there's abduction there. So all of this is happening at the same time, and it seems the government is folding its arms, not doing so much. But now, Donald Trump came on board to say, you know what, I would have invasion. And then there seems to be a lot of movements. The NSA, National Security Advisor, and a lot of persons just came on to say, oh yes, we are working. And everybody's trying to put their nose to books, trying to put their necks to the work. and everybody's trying to do one thing or the other. Do we need an external person to tell us what to do as public office holders in the country? I mean, that is also something to check out this one. It's quite a number of things, and it's still talking engagement with Donald Trump. Diplomatic engagement yielding results. That's what the federal government is now saying about Trump, that diplomatic engagements are already yielding results with, international bodies, and that's talking about the United States in particular. So there seems to be that conversation of the U.S. versus, or should we say, U.S. in collaboration with Nigeria. Now, federal government said they are engaging quite well the diplomatic relations so as not to soil the international relations or collaboration between the two countries. So I remember it was the former president of this country, Olusegun Obasanjo, was saying just a couple of days ago that when it was the head of the state, when he was the president, there was no interference that could have happened during his time, because he would not even allow for that. He even alluded to some of the incidents that happened when he was president, that he said he's always in control, that he would never relinquish control to an external force. Of course, if he expressed also to youth that youth should stand up. He was addressing the issue of the fact that some have also said, there's a bill currently in Nigeria that not too young to run. But he kept mentioning the fact that the people who made the bill are 90 years. He was referring to Paul Biya of Cameroon and some other old presidents in Africa, to say that the people that are saying you should also, guys, rise up. If you are a young person, don't think you are too young to stand up, because you need to act now and act fast. He was saying they should, be disruptive. But he said that in a good faith, to say be disruptive but in a good manner. Be politically disruptive, stand up for what is yours, stand up for your rights, because no one will fight for you. You have to fight for yourself. That's exactly what the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, came out to say on the news with regards to this whole issue. Now, Badaru, Anyim, and Arewa are having a think tank, and then they said Tinubu's reforms is winning North. So sometimes I think this is where the question is. A lot of people would ask questions when government bodies, government institutions, and government parastatals, and even government officials themselves come out to say that we are winning the war against banditry, we are winning the war against insecurity. But how well do we see that? Because if you say it's something to say, it's another thing to do. We see the sayings, we don't see the doings. So some are calling for more. I know, yes, we cannot disprove the fact that the military is doing so much to curb all of this insecurity in the country. But we can also not say that the cases are not surging, because we see today that the military comes out to say we've been able to nab 86 kidnappers, to be able to nab 100 and something terrorists. But again, tomorrow morning, the next story you see is that insurgents, another 70-something kidnapped in the place, or you see the story of Boko Haram wreaking havoc in places, and you wonder, but we just celebrated yesterday that we had victory. But maybe it's also a concern to say sometimes we win the war to lose the battle, or sometimes we lose battles to win the war. But whichever the case is, what is more paramount is that the lives of Nigerians is just as important. And so we must also cater to the lives of the people in the country. I think that's one thing some nations of the world will not joke with. They don't joke with the lives and properties of their people. So they are always upbeat about, if an average person is taken hostage in, for example, the United States does not mind deploying so much artillery, weaponry, arsenal, and officials to that effect. So that's exactly what we see across border, and it should be something we should also keep doing in the country, Nigeria. And of course, so many other stories still to come. But of course, if you stay with us, we have our news bulletins. Of course, stay tuned on this channel. Facebook, we're live, and on Instagram, we're also live, and YouTube, everywhere you see us across board. Now, this is a good place to draw the curtains on this particular segment while we take on the big story. And coming up next is the big story with Yemi Adelapo. Stay with us and don't go nowhere after this break.